Hello, English learners. Welcome back to the English Pod Zone, where learning English is simple, clear, and enjoyable. I'm Julia, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining me for today's lesson. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss any of our upcoming lessons. Today, I'm so excited to share with you a fun and fascinating English lesson that will help you improve your skills and speak more naturally and confidently. Let's get started. Have you ever wondered why it's so hard to express your emotions in English? You know exactly what you feel: happy, sad, angry, or even confused. But when it's time to speak, the words just don't come out right. Maybe you say, "I'm fine," when you're not fine at all. Or you smile and nod because you don't know how to describe what's really happening inside. That's because emotions are not just words. They're feelings, memories, and connections. And when you learn how to express them correctly in English, something magical happens. You don't just speak English. You connect in English. You build real relationships. You express empathy, and you sound more authentic. In today's lesson, we're going to explore how emotions shape every conversation we have, whether it's love, friendship, or even a difficult talk with someone you care about. Because here's the truth: the better you can express your feelings in English, the closer you'll feel to people from all around the world. So, before we dive deeper, I want you to think about this. When was the last time you told someone how you really feel in English? Did you find the right words? Did you feel understood? Today, we'll make sure you can, because by the end of this lesson, you won't just learn new words. You'll learn to feel them. Now let's move into the first part of our journey, the language of connection. How do we actually describe relationships in English? What are the real-life phrases that native speakers use when they talk about love, friendship, and emotional distance? Let's find out together. When we talk about relationships, friendships, or even teamwork, there are certain expressions that native English speakers use naturally. These phrases carry emotion, connection, and meaning. They don't just describe relationships. They show how people truly feel. Today, let's look at 5 essential phrases that will help you sound more natural and express emotions clearly in English. The first one is hit it off. This means to connect with someone instantly or to get along very well from the very first meeting. Imagine meeting a new colleague, and after just a few minutes, you both are laughing and sharing stories as if you've known each other for years. You can say, "We really hit it off." It's that spark, that easy connection that happens without effort. For example, I met Sarah at a conference, and we hit it off immediately. We've been close friends ever since. You can use this phrase not just for romance, but also for friendships, work relationships, or even when meeting someone new in a different country. The second phrase is grow apart. This one describes the opposite feeling. Sometimes even people who were once very close slowly become distant over time. It's not because of anger or arguments. Life just happens. Priorities change, and people drift away. For instance, after college, my best friend and I grew apart because we moved to different cities. It's a natural part of life. But learning to express it in English helps you talk about emotions honestly. You can even use it metaphorically, like, we didn't argue, we just grew apart. Now, let's talk about something hopeful. Sort things out. This phrase means to fix problems, clear misunderstandings, or find solutions in a calm and mature way. Relationships of any kind always need moments of sorting things out. When you say, "We need to sort things out," it means, let's talk. Let's understand each other. For example, my sister and I had a disagreement, but we sorted things out over coffee. Notice how natural it sounds, simple, but filled with emotion. Closely related to that is work things out. The difference between sort things out and work things out is subtle, but powerful. While sort things out is usually for small problems or one-time misunderstandings, work things out often means a longer process that takes patience and commitment. It's what couples, friends, or even business partners do when things get complicated. You could say they've been having problems, but they're trying to work things out. It shows hope, effort, and emotional maturity. In real life, this phrase reflects perseverance, the idea that relationships take time, energy, and honest communication. And finally, talk things through. This one is essential for strong communication. It means to discuss something carefully and honestly until both people understand each other's feelings. Talking things through prevents confusion and helps people reconnect. For instance, after our argument, we talked things through and everything felt lighter. This phrase encourages openness and empathy, the foundation of every good relationship. Let's pause for a moment and imagine a real-life situation. Think about a time when you misunderstood someone. Maybe a friend didn't reply to your message, and you assumed they were ignoring you. Later, you found out they were just busy or going through something difficult. If you had talked things through earlier, that misunderstanding might never have happened. See how language and emotions are connected. The right words can heal distance and rebuild trust. Let's practice these phrases again together. Hit it off, grow apart, sort things out, work things out, talk things through. Each phrase represents a stage of connection from the first spark to distance to rebuilding and communication. They are not just English expressions. They are the story of every human relationship. Now, here's how you can use them in daily English conversations. When you meet someone new, instead of saying, "We became friends fast," say, "We hit it off." If you're reflecting on a friendship that faded away, instead of saying, "We're not close anymore," say, "We grew apart." When you're ready to fix a misunderstanding, say, "Let's sort things out." And if it's something deeper, say, "We need to work things out." Finally, when you want to talk openly with someone you care about, say, "Let's talk things through." These phrases are not only natural, they show emotional intelligence, one of the keys to sounding fluent and confident in English. Native speakers use them every day, not just in personal relationships, but also at work, in movies, and even in professional communication. For example, a manager might say, "Let's talk this through before making a decision." Or a friend might say, "I hope we can work things out." The same expressions fit different emotional tones, depending on your voice and context. To really master them, try repeating each one out loud, with emotion. Feel the meaning as you say it. For instance, say, "We hit it off with a smile and warm energy." Say, "We grew apart," with a soft, reflective tone. Say, "We sorted things out," with a calm, satisfied feeling. This emotional connection to language helps you sound natural and authentic. When you think about it, these 5 phrases actually tell a story. 2 people meet and hit it off. Time passes, and maybe they grow apart. Then they realize they care enough to sort things out. decide to work things out, and finally talk things through until everything feels clear again. That's life in English relationships expressed through simple, beautiful language. So next time you watch a movie, listen carefully. You'll hear these phrases everywhere. Listen for the emotion behind them. It's never just about vocabulary. It's about understanding people and expressing yourself in a way that feels real and human. And now that you know these powerful phrases, let's go deeper. What happens when those emotions actually start to change how people speak and act in relationships? Let's explore how feelings influence communication and how learning the right English expressions can help you not just speak better, but connect better. Emma sat on the edge of her bed staring at the quiet phone screen. It had been hours since Chris last texted her, and though she told herself he was probably busy, a small voice inside whispered that something had changed. She felt they were just going through the motions, like two actors repeating lines from a script they no longer believed in. It hadn't always been this way. When they first met, everything felt light and easy. They laughed about silly things, shared stories late into the night, and always found time for each other. No matter how busy life got, they hit it off instantly. But now, silence had replaced laughter, and routine had replaced connection. Emma couldn't pinpoint the exact moment it started, but the distance between them grew a little more each day. She tried to remember the last real conversation they had, not about groceries, not about work, but about feelings. When was the last time they looked each other in the eyes and said something that mattered? She couldn't recall. All she knew was that something invisible now stood between them, and it wasn't going away on its own. One evening after dinner, she decided to say something. Her voice trembled a little, but she forced herself to speak. "Chris, do you ever feel like we're distant lately?" He looked up, surprised. He asked. She hesitated, afraid of sounding dramatic. "I don't know," she said quietly. "It just feels like we don't really talk anymore. We're together, but it feels like we're miles apart." Chris nodded slowly, looking down at his hands. "Yeah," he finally said. "I felt that too. I thought maybe it was just me." That moment of honesty broke something open. It wasn't easy, and the conversation that followed was messy, emotional, and filled with pauses. But it was real. For the first time in months, they weren't pretending. They were communicating. They were sorting things out. Emma realized something important that night. Communication doesn't always mean talking all the time. It means being brave enough to say what's true, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about listening, not to reply, but to understand. Many learners struggle with English conversation because they focus only on words, grammar, and vocabulary. But real communication, the kind that builds relationships, is about connection, emotional connection. When Emma said, "I feel like we're distant," she wasn't using complicated grammar. She was using honesty. She used simple emotional language to describe what she felt, and that's what made her sound natural and human. This is something you can practice, too. You can express complex emotions with simple English. You don't need long, perfect sentences. You just need to be clear and sincere. Let's look at how Emma could have expressed herself using different natural English phrases. Instead of saying, "We are not close anymore," she could say, "I feel like we've grown apart." It sounds gentle, but real. Instead of saying, "We need to fix this," she could say, "We need to work things out." That phrase shows hope, not blame. And instead of saying we don't talk anymore, she might say it feels like we're just going through the motions, that one sentence paints a full emotional picture. These are expressions that native speakers use when they talk about relationships, but more importantly, they show emotion in a natural, non-dramatic way. It's the kind of English that connects. And that's the lesson. Emma learned communication is the key, not perfection. After that night, Emma and Chris decided to make small changes. They agreed to have dinner without phones. They started going on short walks after work, not to solve problems, but to reconnect. At first, it felt awkward, like learning to talk again. But slowly, things started to feel lighter. They laughed more, they listened more, and they remembered why they cared in the first place. Emma often thought about how close they came to losing what they had, not because of a big fight, but because of silence. Silence can be louder than words. It can fill a room and push people apart without them even realizing it. She promised herself that no matter what, she would never let silence build walls again. If you've ever felt distant from someone, you probably understand what Emma went through. Maybe it was a friend who stopped calling or a family member you haven't spoken to in a while. Relationships change, and sometimes it's not about fault. It's about awareness. The moment you notice the distance, that's your opportunity to reach out, to talk things through. In English, there are so many ways to express that feeling of emotional distance. You can say, "We don't talk like we used to," or "I feel like something's missing between us." These are gentle, open phrases. They invite the other person to respond, not defend. And that's the power of good communication. It opens doors instead of closing them. Emma's story reminds us that every relationship, no matter how strong, needs maintenance. You can't just build it once and expect it to last forever. It's like language learning. You have to keep practicing, keep using it, keep improving. Communication, both in relationships and in English, is a skill you develop over time. So, what can we take away from Emma's experience? First, never assume people know what you're feeling. Say it. Even if your English isn't perfect, your sincerity will come through. Second, listen. Really listen. Don't interrupt. Don't rush to fix things. Sometimes people don't need answers. They need to feel heard. And third, be patient. Working things out takes time, effort, and kindness. One of the best phrases to remember from this story is, "We talked things through." It's short, natural, and powerful. It shows maturity, responsibility, and care. When you use it, you show that you're not afraid to communicate honestly. Language is more than vocabulary. It's emotion. When you learn how to express feelings, you don't just improve your English, you improve your ability to connect with people. And connection is what language is truly about. Now imagine if Emma had never spoken up. Imagine if she had stayed silent, waiting for Chris to somehow know what she was feeling. They might have continued to grow apart until the relationship quietly ended. That's what happens when people stop communicating. Distance becomes permanent. But when someone decides to speak with honesty and kindness, everything can change. So, here's a challenge for you. Think about one person in your life you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe you miss them, or maybe something feels unresolved. Try using one of today's phrases. You can say, "Hey, I feel like we've grown apart lately." Or, "Can we talk things through?" These words might feel small, but they carry incredible power. Because the truth is, the ability to express your emotions in any language is what keeps relationships alive. And that's the real secret to learning English naturally. When you practice speaking from the heart, your words will always sound right. And just like Emma discovered, communication doesn't just solve problems. It rebuilds trust, strengthens connection, and reminds us why we cared in the first place. So, let's keep exploring how emotions shape our English conversations, and how understanding them deeply can make our communication stronger, kinder, and more real. Let's take a closer look at the English from Emma's story. You heard her say, "We've grown apart." That's a perfect example of how grammar connects directly with emotion. It's not just about getting tenses right. It's about expressing something real and meaningful. So, in this part, let's explore some of the grammar that makes emotional English sound natural and powerful in real life. Let's start with the present perfect tense. When Emma says, "We've grown apart," she's describing something that started in the past and still affects the present. The present perfect connects time and feeling. It's not just about what happened. It's about what's still true now. For example, when you say, "I've learned a lot from this relationship," it means you learned in the past. But those lessons are still part of you. If you say, "We've lost touch," it means you were close before. But now that connection is gone, and you feel it today. This tense is perfect for describing emotional changes. Think about it. You could say we grew apart, but that sounds like it's completely finished. Something in the past, with no connection to now. But we've grown apart feels more alive. It tells the listener that the emotional distance still exists. That's why native speakers use the present perfect so often when talking about relationships, life experiences, or personal growth. It shows that the past and present are linked. Let's practice a few examples together. I've been feeling distant lately. She's changed a lot since we last talked. They've become closer over time. I've realized how important communication is. All of these show that what started before still matters now. Now, let's move on to conditional sentences, one of the most expressive tools in English when talking about feelings and relationships. You might remember the line, "If you don't talk, you'll never know." That's a first conditional sentence. It describes a real possibility for the future. It means, if you avoid communication, the result will be ignorance or misunderstanding. The structure is simple. If plus, present simple, will, plus base, verb, but the meaning can be deep. You can use conditionals to give advice, show concern, or even express regret. For example, if you open up, they might understand you better. If we don't make time for each other, we'll lose what we have. If you don't ask, you'll never find out. These are not just grammar structures. They are real expressions of life lessons. They teach responsibility and awareness. There's also the second conditional, which we use for imaginary or less likely situations. For example, if I were you, I'd talk to him. You're giving advice, imagining yourself in another person's situation. It's a soft, polite way to suggest action without sounding too direct. Another example is if we spent more time together, maybe things would be different. It's reflective, emotional, and full of possibility. And finally, the third conditional helps you express regret or reflection about the past. For example, if I had said something sooner, maybe we wouldn't have grown apart. These kinds of sentences allow you to talk about missed chances, lessons learned, and emotional understanding. In real conversations, people use conditionals all the time to express these deeper feelings without even realizing how much grammar supports their emotion. Now, let's talk about modal verbs, small words that carry big meaning. In Emma's story, you heard phrases like, "What if he doesn't feel the same way?" and "You should talk to him." Words like might, should, could, and can't are powerful tools for expressing possibility, advice, and emotion. For example, might shows uncertainty or possibility. He might be feeling the same way. It's gentle, not too strong. You're suggesting something, not assuming it. Should gives advice. You should talk to him. It's stronger than might, but still caring. Could expresses ability or potential. We could work things out. It's hopeful, showing that there's still a chance, and can't often expresses disbelief or emotional reaction. I can't believe this is happening, or it can't be over. Modals are how we add emotion to our sentences. Without them, English would sound cold and robotic. Imagine saying, "Talk to him," compared to "You should talk to him." The second version feels warmer, more human. That's what modal verbs do. They make your English sound empathetic, real, and alive. To sound natural, combine these modals with emotional vocabulary. You might need to talk things through. You should sort things out before it gets worse. We could make up if we just listened to each other. I can't ignore this anymore. These sentences are both grammatically correct and emotionally meaningful. They show understanding, compassion, and honesty. Grammar isn't just about correctness. It's about connection. The present perfect helps you link past and present. Conditionals help you imagine, hope, and reflect. Modals let you express shades of emotion, doubt, advice, confidence, or uncertainty. Together, they form the language of real human relationships. When you learn English grammar this way, connected to emotion and storytelling, it becomes easier to remember and use because you're not memorizing rules. You're learning meaning. Think about how you would express your own feelings using these patterns. For example, I've been thinking about our friendship. If we talked more, we could understand each other better. You should tell her how you feel. Each sentence combines emotion with structure, grammar with life. Let's look at one more example from Emma's story. She said, "I don't even know how to bring it up." The phrase "bring it up" is a phrasal verb, meaning to start talking about something difficult. But notice the modal idea hidden inside hesitation, uncertainty, vulnerability. She could have said, "I might bring it up," or "I should bring it up." Adding modals changes the tone of her thoughts. "I might bring it up" shows she's unsure. "I should bring it up" means she feels she needs to, even if it's uncomfortable. That's the beauty of English grammar in real life. It's emotional grammar. Every tense, every modal, every structure helps people share what they really feel. Try listening to English conversations or movies with this new perspective. When a character says, "I've been thinking about you," notice the present perfect. It's emotional, ongoing, alive. When someone says, "If you love me, prove it," that's a conditional. It's emotional logic. When a friend says you should apologize, that's advice shaped by a modal verb. Grammar isn't just a tool for correctness. It's the bridge between thought and feeling. So, next time you study grammar, don't think of it as a rule to memorize. Think of it as a way to express who you are and how you feel. The difference between I grew apart and I've grown apart is the difference between past and present emotion. The difference between talk to him and you should talk to him is the difference between order and empathy. Understanding grammar in this emotional way will not only make your English more accurate, but also more human. It's what makes native speakers sound natural, not because their grammar is perfect, but because their words match their feelings. Now that we've explored how grammar gives meaning to emotion, let's look at how those emotions appear in all kinds of relationships, not just romantic ones, but friendships, families, and even at work. Because the truth is, the way we communicate our feelings can transform every connection we have. When we think about relationships, most people immediately imagine romance. But relationships are everywhere in our lives. They exist between friends, family members, co-workers, neighbors, and even strangers we meet by chance. The way we use English to express emotions in these different connections can completely change the quality of our communication. The truth is, we all need to express how we feel, not just when things go wrong, but also when we feel love, gratitude, or appreciation. Many English learners tend to focus on vocabulary for solving conflicts or expressing sadness. But positive emotions are just as important, maybe even more so, because they build connection before problems even appear. Think about it. How often do you tell your friend, "I appreciate you," or tell your parents, "I'm thankful for everything you do"? These simple words, when said in English, can create warmth and trust instantly. Let's explore some natural ways to express positive emotions across different kinds of relationships. Imagine a close friendship. Friends often support each other through ups and downs, but sometimes they forget to say how much they value that bond. Instead of saying something generic like, "You're my friend," try saying, "I'm really glad we met," or "I'm so grateful for your support." These phrases are not complicated, but they sound heartfelt and genuine. Native speakers often use short, simple sentences to express big emotions. Now, let's look at family relationships. They can be both beautiful and challenging. Families share history, habits, and emotions that run deep. And yet, in many cultures, especially where expressing emotions openly isn't common, people rarely say what they truly feel. In English, however, expressing appreciation directly is seen as a strength, not a weakness. You might say, "Mom, I really appreciate everything you've done for me." Or, "Dad, I admire how hard you've worked for our family." Even a short message like, "I love how you always make me laugh," can have a lasting effect. If you've ever lived abroad or worked with international colleagues, you know that workplace relationships also need emotional intelligence. Of course, professional English should stay polite and respectful, but that doesn't mean it has to be cold or robotic. You can build strong connections with coworkers by using language that shows empathy and gratitude. For example, "I really enjoyed working with you on this project," or "I appreciate your help with this deadline." These phrases make people feel seen and valued, and that feeling often turns into mutual respect and teamwork. One key to expressing emotions naturally in English is tone. You don't need to use dramatic words or speak loudly. What matters is sincerity. When you say, "Thank you so much for listening," or "I really value our friendship," speak slowly and clearly, letting the emotion carry through your voice. English speakers often communicate emotion through tone, rather than long explanations. That's why understanding intonation and stress can make your words sound more authentic. Let's look at some positive emotion phrases that are useful in any relationship. I'm proud of you. I really appreciate what you did. You mean a lot to me. I'm happy to have you in my life. It made my day when you said that. I feel lucky to know you. These are short, easy to remember, and incredibly powerful when used at the right moment. They are also universal. You can say them to friends, family, colleagues, or even students if you're a teacher. Expressing positive emotions in English also means noticing the small things. Instead of waiting for birthdays or holidays, try using these phrases in everyday moments. When your Sea Orker finishes a difficult task, you can say, "Great job on that report. You handled it so well." When a friend shares good news, say, "I'm so happy for you." When your sibling helps you with something, say, "That was really thoughtful of you." These moments of appreciation strengthen relationships naturally, without effort. Another important skill is showing empathy, the ability to understand and share another person's feelings. Empathy doesn't mean you have to solve someone's problem. It just means you show that you care. In English, empathy often sounds like simple, kind sentences such as, "That sounds really tough," or "I can imagine how you feel." These phrases are short, but full of understanding. They show emotional maturity and make people feel supported. In English-speaking cultures, people often balance honesty with kindness when expressing feelings. Instead of hiding emotions, they express them gently and clearly. For example, if a friend is struggling, you might say, "I know things are difficult right now, but I'm here for you." Or if a colleague is feeling stressed, you might say, "I can tell you've been under pressure. Let me know if I can help." These phrases don't just communicate sympathy, they build trust. Here's something many learners overlook. Expressing emotions is also about listening. Sometimes the most powerful emotional response is silence, followed by understanding. When someone shares something personal, instead of jumping in with advice, you can respond with, "That must have been hard," or simply, "I understand." These responses make space for the other person to open up in English. This kind of emotional listening is deeply valued. Learning how to express emotions in English is not only about vocabulary, it's about developing emotional fluency. Emotional fluency means you can express what you feel clearly, kindly, and appropriately for the situation. It helps you connect more deeply. Whether you're having a serious talk with your parents or joking with your friends, let's imagine a situation. You have a close friend who has supported you for years. One day, you decide to tell them how much that means to you. You say, "You've always been there for me, even when I didn't ask for help. I really appreciate that." That one sentence can strengthen your friendship more than any gift or long message. Because what people remember most isn't what you did, but how you made them feel. And that brings us to an important idea. Expressing emotions doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger. It shows courage, honesty, and care. In any language, silence can create distance, but kind words build connection. Whether it's love, friendship, or teamwork, the same rule applies. Communicate clearly, kindly, and often. Now let's think about how this connects to learning English. When you practice expressing emotions, you're not just learning language, you're learning confidence. You stop worrying about grammar mistakes and start focusing on meaning. You begin to speak from your heart instead of your textbook. That's when English becomes natural, personal, and alive. So next time you talk to someone, your friend, your family, your colleague, take a small step. Use one phrase from today's lesson. Tell someone, "I'm proud of you," or "I'm thankful for you." Watch how their face changes. That moment of connection is what real communication feels like. And as we continue exploring this topic, we'll see how these emotions and connections sometimes lead to conflict, misunderstandings, or distance. But just as importantly, they can also lead to reconciliation, forgiveness, and growth. Because in every relationship, both positive and negative emotions have something to teach us. And knowing how to express them in English helps us grow as speakers and as people. Now that we've talked about expressing positive emotions and building empathy, it's time to look at another side of relationships. What happens when things go wrong? Every connection, no matter how strong, goes through moments of misunderstanding, disappointment, or conflict. The key is not to avoid those moments, but to handle them with understanding and maturity. In English, there are a few powerful phrases that help describe how people deal with conflict, forgiveness, and emotional healing. Today we'll learn 4 of them: make up, fall out, hold a grudge, and talk things through. Let's start with make up. This phrase means to reconcile after a disagreement or argument. It's the process of repairing a relationship that has been damaged. When people make up, they choose understanding over pride. You can use it in both romantic and friendly contexts. For example, we argued yesterday, but we made up this morning. Or after their fight, they finally made up and started talking again. It's simple, but meaningful. Making up isn't just about saying sorry. It's about rebuilding trust and connection. Now, to make sure you really understand it, let's do a quick quiz. I'll give you 2 examples and you choose which one uses make up correctly. A. We decided to make up a new story for our project. B. We decided to make up after the argument. The correct answer is B. The first sentence means to invent something, which is another meaning of make-up. But when we talk about relationships, make-up means to become friends again after a disagreement. So remember, context is everything. Next, let's talk about fallout. This phrase means to argue or have a serious disagreement that damages a relationship. When you fall out with someone, you usually stop speaking to them for a while, sometimes for months or even years. For example, I fell out with my best friend over something small, and we didn't talk for weeks, or they fell out after that business deal went wrong. Notice how fallout doesn't mean a physical fall. It's emotional distance. It's that space between 2 people who once cared about each other, but now can't communicate. And sometimes people don't even remember what started it, just that they stop talking. To make it interactive, let's try another quiz. Which of these sentences is correct? A. We fell out over money, and it took months to fix things. B. We fell out the stairs yesterday. Of course, the answer is A. The second one is incorrect, because fallout in this emotional sense always involves a relationship, not a physical action. Now let's move on to hold a grudge. This one is powerful because it talks about what happens after a conflict. To hold a grudge means to stay angry at someone for a long time because of something they did in the past. It's when you can't let go of resentment. For example, she still holds a grudge against her brother for something that happened years ago. Or, it's hard to move forward if you keep holding a grudge. When you hold a grudge, you carry emotional weight that affects not only your relationship, but also your peace of mind. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to live in anger. Many English speakers use this phrase when reflecting on old conflicts. Try this quiz. Which person is holding a grudge? A. He forgave his friend and moved on. B. He still refuses to talk to his friend because of what happened last year. The answer is B. Holding a grudge keeps you stuck in the past. It's important to learn to release it so you can heal and reconnect. And finally, talk things through. This phrase means to discuss a problem carefully and honestly until both sides understand each other. It's what healthy, emotionally intelligent people do when something goes wrong. Instead of ignoring the issue or pretending everything's fine, they take the time to talk things through. For example, after the fight, they sat down and talked things through for hours. Or we always talk things through when we disagree. And that's why our friendship is strong. Talking things through requires patience, openness, and empathy. It's not about winning an argument. It's about understanding. You can practice this in English by using sentences like, "Can we talk this through?" Or "Let's sit down and talk things through before we decide." These are calm adult ways to manage emotions and rebuild trust. Now that we've covered all 4 phrases, let's see how they work together in a real-life example. Imagine 2 friends, Ryan and Sophia. They've been close since high school, but one day they fall out over something small, maybe a misunderstanding at a party. For weeks, they don't speak. Both feel hurt, but neither wants to reach out first. Time passes, and the silence grows heavier. Ryan keeps replaying the argument in his mind, holding a grudge without realizing it. Sophia feels sad, but also proud. She tells herself he should apologize first. Then one day, Sophia sees an old photo of them laughing together. Something changes. She decides to call him. When he answers, her voice shakes a little, but she says, "Can we talk things through?" That moment of honesty breaks the silence. They meet, talk for hours, and finally make up. The tension fades, replaced by laughter and understanding. They both realize the argument wasn't worth the distance. This story shows how these 4 phrases describe the emotional journey of conflict and resolution. First, people fall out. Then, they might hold a grudge. Eventually, they decide to talk things through, and if they're lucky, they make up. These expressions don't just teach you vocabulary, they teach you the rhythm of real relationships. Let's review one more time, but this time, think about the emotions behind the words. Make up peace and forgiveness, fallout, conflict, and distance, hold a grudge, anger, and pain. Talk things through understanding and healing. Each phrase represents a stage that every relationship goes through at some point. Learning how to say them naturally helps you describe your own experiences and understand others better. Now, let's practice using these phrases in short conversations. Imagine someone says, "I haven't spoken to my friend in months." You can respond, "Did you 2 fall out?" If they say, "We talked last night and everything's okay now," you can say, "I'm glad you made up." Or if someone says, "I can't forgive him," you can gently say, "Try not to hold a grudge. It only hurts you." And when you're offering advice, you can say, "Maybe you should talk things through before making a decision." As you can see, these expressions are emotional, but they're also polite, natural, and flexible. They fit everyday situations in English. Whether you're talking about love, friendship, or work relationships, using them makes your English sound real. The kind of English people actually speak when they care about each other. Now, take a moment to think about your own life. Is there someone you've fallen out with? Someone you miss but haven't talked to in a while? Maybe today's lesson can inspire you to take that first step. Send a message, make a call, try to talk things through. You might be surprised at how powerful one small conversation can be. Because at the end of the day, relationships grow not from perfection, but from the courage to repair, forgive, and move on. Let's keep going and look at how emotional healing and forgiveness actually sound in real conversations. How people use English to rebuild trust after conflict, and how language can transform broken connections into stronger bonds. Sophia and Ryan had been friends for years. They met in high school, shared memories, secrets, and countless late-night conversations about everything from dreams and heartbreaks to coffee and bad movies. But one night, everything changed. It was Ryan's birthday. The party was loud, full of laughter, and maybe a little too much wine. In the middle of the evening, Sophia said something careless, something that hurt. The room fell silent, and Ryan's smile disappeared. What she said that night echoed in his mind long after the party was over. The next day, Sophia wanted to apologize, but pride held her back. She told herself, "He knows I didn't mean it." Ryan, meanwhile, replayed the moment again and again. He couldn't believe his best friend had embarrassed him in front of everyone. Days turned into weeks, and neither of them reached out. They had fallen out, and for 6 months, they didn't speak a single word. But time has a way of softening pain. One day, Sophia was shopping when she saw Ryan's mother. She looked older, tired, but kind as always. They spoke for a few minutes, and his mother said softly, "Ryan's been struggling lately. He misses his old friends." Those words hit Sophia like a wave. She realized she missed him too. The laughter, the support, the sense that someone always had her back. She decided that it was time. That evening she sat on her couch, phone in hand, typing and deleting the same message over and over. Finally, she pressed send. "Hey, Ryan, can we talk?" To her surprise, he replied almost immediately, "Sure." When? The next day they met at a quiet cafe. The air was heavy with hesitation. Ryan looked at her, unsure what to expect. She looked nervous but determined. Finally, Sophia spoke first. "Ryan, I'm sorry. I know what I said was awful. I've thought about it 1,000 times. I shouldn't have said those things. Not in front of everyone." Ryan sighed, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "It really hurts, Soph. You made me feel small, and instead of explaining, you just disappeared." "I know," she said. "I should have called. I could have tried harder to fix things, but I was embarrassed. I thought you'd never want to talk to me again." Notice how Sophia used should have and could have. These are modal verbs of regret. Should have expresses responsibility for something you didn't do, but wish you had. Could have shows possibility, something you were able to do, but didn't. I should have called means she knows she made the wrong choice. I could have tried harder means she recognizes that the opportunity was there, but she didn't take it. These small phrases carry deep emotion in English. They show self-awareness and humility. Ryan looked down at his coffee and said quietly, "I might have overreacted too. I could have listened instead of blocking you everywhere." His tone was soft now, regretful. When we use could have in the past like this, it shows reflection, a kind of emotional maturity that helps people reconnect. Then Sophia said, I'd been feeling so stressed at that time. My job, the breakup, everything just exploded that night. Here, she used the past perfect I'd been feeling to describe something that happened before another past event. It helps give emotional context. It shows that her bad behavior at the party wasn't random. It came from something building up inside her long before that night. Ryan nodded slowly. Yeah, I get it. I'd been dealing with my own stuff too. I was angry, but I also missed you. He paused. My sister kept telling me I should at least hear you out. That's reported speech when we share what someone else said without quoting them directly. Notice how he didn't say, my sister said, you should hear her out. Instead, he reported it naturally. My sister kept telling me I should at least hear you out. This is how English speakers talk when recounting advice or conversations. Sophia smiled for the first time. I didn't know that. I thought you hated me. I did for a while, Ryan admitted. But hating you didn't make me feel better. It just made me lonelier. Silence filled the table for a moment. It wasn't awkward. It was the silence that comes when words start to heal something broken. Then Sophia said, Can we start over? Ryan looked up and nodded. Yeah, I think we can. But next time, let's talk things through before it gets that bad. She laughed. Deal. That short, simple word carried months of pain, forgiveness, and relief. This story of Sophia and Ryan shows something powerful about human relationships and about English itself. The way we express regret, forgiveness, and reflection in language mirrors how we grow emotionally. The grammar we just studied past perfect reported speech and modal verbs of regret are not just grammatical tools. They are emotional tools. The past perfect helps us explain background and cause. When we say, I'd been feeling hurt before that night, we give context. We help the other person understand our emotions more deeply. Reported speech helps us bring in other voices, perspectives, and advice naturally. It's what makes conversations sound real. For example, my friend said I should call you, or my mom told me I might be overthinking it. These structures allow us to share lessons and empathy from others, and modal verbs of regret could have, should have, might have. They open the door to forgiveness. They allow people to take responsibility without judgment. When you say, I should have told you sooner, you're admitting fault, but you're also showing vulnerability. That vulnerability creates connection. In many cultures, especially where pride or saving face is important, saying sorry can feel uncomfortable. But in English, apology and reflection are seen as signs of strength, not weakness. When you express regret sincerely, you show emotional intelligence. You're saying, I care about this relationship more than my ego. That's the real lesson here. Don't let pride destroy your connection. In every friendship, every relationship, every partnership, there will be moments of misunderstanding. But those moments don't have to be the end. They can be the beginning of a deeper bond if you choose communication over silence, empathy over anger. Sophia and Ryan's story reminds us that forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning from it. They both made mistakes. They both hurt each other. But when they decided to talk things through, they transformed pain into understanding. That's what language does at its best. It connects hearts, not just words. In your own English learning, try using these grammar patterns to express your real feelings. Practice saying sentences like, I should have apologized sooner, or I could have been more patient. These are not just exercises. They are reflections of emotional honesty. So, next time you think of someone you've fallen out with, remember Sophia and Ryan. Maybe you can be the one to send that first message to say, "Can we talk?" Because no matter how far apart people grow, understanding and humility can always bring them back together, as long as they're willing to speak from the heart. And as we continue exploring how English helps us express emotion and rebuild relationships, let's move forward to see how we can use language not just to repair, but to strengthen our connections and nurture them for the long term. At the end of the day, relationships are what make life meaningful. It doesn't matter how fluent your English is, if you can't use it to connect, to express what you truly feel, or to build trust with the people around you. Communication is not just about speaking. It's about understanding yourself and others. When you use English to express real emotions, you aren't just practicing grammar or vocabulary. You're practicing empathy, honesty, and human connection. Think about every story we've explored so far. Emma felt distant from her partner because she didn't know how to express what was wrong. Sophia and Ryan lost months of friendship because pride and silence got in the way. And when they finally spoke, when they used words to open their hearts, they found understanding again. That's the real power of communication. One honest conversation can heal months of pain. When we talk about language learning, most people think of studying lists of words or memorizing tenses. But English, or any language, becomes truly powerful when it becomes a bridge between hearts. When you say, "I miss you," "I'm proud of you," or even, "I'm sorry," those simple words carry more weight than any complicated sentence could. Fluency is not just about speed or accuracy. It's about sincerity. Now let's take a moment to reflect on what you've learned throughout this lesson. You've learned how to talk about relationships, how they start, how they change, how they can sometimes break, and how they can heal. You've learned vocabulary like hit it off, grow apart, sort things out, work things out, fall out, make up, and talk things through. You've also seen how grammar and emotion work together, how the present perfect connects the past and present, how conditional sentences give advice and hope, and how modal verbs like should have and could have let us express regret and reflection. But more importantly, you've learned something deeper, that language is emotional. Every tense, every phrase, every tone you use carries a feeling. When you say, "We've grown apart," it's not just grammar. It's a feeling of loss. When you say, "We worked things out," it's a feeling of relief and hope. This is why I always tell my students, learn to feel the words, not just to understand them. Communication is the foundation of every relationship, romantic, friendly, professional, or family-based. And yet, many people are afraid of expressing how they feel. They fear sounding weak, or they don't know the right words. But in English, emotional expression is strength. Saying, "I was hurt," or "I appreciate you," isn't weakness. It's maturity. It shows you care about clarity, truth, and connection. Here's something to think about. How many times have you stayed silent because you didn't know how to say something in English? Maybe you wanted to comfort a friend or explain your feelings, but you couldn't find the right words. That's okay. Every learner goes through that. The solution isn't to avoid those moments, but to prepare for them by learning emotional language, by practicing tone, by speaking from your heart, even if your English isn't perfect yet. So, let's do a little reflection exercise together. Imagine someone you care about, a friend, a family member, or even a coworker. Think about something you've always wanted to say to them, but haven't. Now take a deep breath and try to express it in English. It could be as simple as "Thank you for always being there for me," or "I'm sorry if I hurt you." Feel the meaning behind those words as you speak them. That's what real communication feels like. Not rehearsed, not mechanical, but alive and human. Let's also talk about listening, because communication is never one-sided. Listening is just as powerful as speaking. When someone shares something emotional with you, don't rush to respond. Listen with your heart first. In English, a simple "I understand" or "that must be hard" can mean more than a long explanation. These small phrases show empathy, the most important language skill of all. If you start practicing emotional communication in English every day, you'll notice something amazing. You'll begin to feel more confident, not just in your language, but in yourself. You'll stop worrying so much about making mistakes, because your goal won't just be to speak correctly. It'll be to connect honestly. The people you talk to will feel it too. They'll respond not to your grammar, but to your sincerity. Here's a small daily practice I recommend. Every day, take 2 minutes to express one emotion in English. It could be gratitude, love, sadness, or joy. Say it out loud, even if you're alone. For example, "I'm grateful for my family." "I feel proud of myself today." Or, "I miss my old friends." Speaking emotions aloud helps you connect language with feeling. And that connection builds fluency faster than memorizing any list of words. And when you talk to others, try using one emotional phrase from today's lesson. Say, "Let's talk things through." When you want to solve a problem, say, "I really appreciate your help." When someone supports you, or say, "I'm happy we made up." After reconnecting with someone, each time you do, you'll feel more confident using English to express your real self. Because language is not just communication, it's connection. And the best connections come from honesty. When you speak honestly, you touch people. You make them feel seen, heard, and understood. That's what builds lasting relationships, both in your first language and in English. So as we close today's lesson, I want you to remember this. You are not just learning English. You are learning how to express yourself, how to listen, how to understand people across cultures and emotions. You are learning how to use words that heal, comfort, and inspire. If you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe, and remember, learning English isn't just about words. It's about people. Every sentence you learn, every story you listen to brings you closer to others. So, keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep feeling the language. Your English journey is not about perfection. It's about connection. It's about courage. It's about finding your voice and using it with kindness. Because at the end of the day, the most beautiful thing you can say in any language is something true, something kind, and something that comes from the start.